So anyway, again, I'm Nancy Norris Bauer. I'm the state coordinator for New Jersey History Day and National History Day in New Jersey. And we are very fortunate. This is the first in a series of 4 workshops that we're sponsoring for History Day. And we're starting off today with the theme, an overview of the 2023 theme and New Jersey topic ideas. And, you know, just getting started with History Day. And next on the next workshop is more strategies for working with students. And then a large part of the workshop is on doing oral histories. And one of the professors at Monmouth University is going to be doing that workshop. The workshop after that, we have some librarians from Rowan University who are doing a wonderful workshop on digital literacy. They have a lot of things that you may not have encountered before. So it's a wonderful workshop. And then finally, we have the filmmaker from the new film that was recently on PBS here in New Jersey about, it's called The Price of Silence, about slavery in New Jersey. And the filmmaker will be with us talking about his inspiration, kind of the behind the story behind the film. And then we'll have the outgoing state teacher of the year with us, who is a History Day teacher. And she will, Teresa Mon, and she will be talking about ways to incorporate the film and the content of the film in curriculum. So I think we have three additional good workshops in addition to today, but we're always open to suggestions. And if you go to our New Jersey website, go to William Patterson University, New Jersey History Day, one of the things you'll see under my photo is if you need any help, ask for a mentor, and we will connect you with outstanding retired teachers like Joan, archivists and librarians like Fernanda. And so, you know, we want to help everybody in any way that we can. So that being said, I want to briefly introduce them, and they can add to the introductions our 2 presenters for today. So I'll start off with Fernanda Perron, and she's the archivist and head exhibitions, the librarian at the Alexander Library Special Collections in New Brunswick. And she has special interest in American women's history, Japanese and Korean history. And I can't say enough about how much they have helped History Day students. I know they had a big flood and they've been dealing with all the aftermath of that, but they are wonderful about helping in any way they can. So I just want to publicly thank everyone there. And in addition, we have Joan Ruddiman. Joan is a outstanding retired History Day teacher, had many students at the national contest, winning at the national contest. And she was in West Windsor, Plainsboro, has a lot of, did a lot with not only in her own district, but helping so many schools and programs getting started around the state. And she's also very actively involved in other history related things like Rev New Jersey right now. You're probably involved in that too, Fernanda. I don't know, but.
Yes, yes, I am. I'm on the one of the committees.
Yes, and Joan is on the education committee. So there's a lot already going on with plans for 2026. So I think, Joan, you're going first. Is that right? So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ruddiman and then Dr. Perron.
Okay, so here we go. I'm going to share my screen. and hopefully my technology will work effectively. Certainly did a minute ago. Okay. All right, so are we good, Nancy? Can we do that?
Yes,
All right,
we
great.
can see that. And I forgot to mention that everybody who attends, we're going to send you, I know Joan had one in her hand, a hard copy of the theme book for this year. So it's kind of a reward for attending today's session. So anyway.
Well, the purpose of this brief slideshow is to introduce you to kind of the nuts and bolts of History Day, and also the theme and how the theme is so integral to what we do. So the contest, one of the, I think, great advantages of History Day is it encourages students to create a project that fits with their particular learning style and interests. The students can write a paper, traditional paper. They can do a website, a performance, documentary, or an exhibit. And except for a paper, they can work as individuals or in groups, and the groups can be up to 5 people. They compete in junior division, grades 6 through 8, or senior division, 9 through 12. So if you're thinking about this, there's a lot of iterations for Nancy to find many different types of judges, because we judge each area with their own. So junior division website, group websites would be judged separately from senior group websites, and senior then individual, etc. It helps to know the categories so that you can get involved, but I think it's important to encourage students to think in terms of what they really enjoy doing. I'll tell a quick story of a student we had many years ago, went to regionals with an exhibit board, and one of the judges pulled her aside and said, you are a phenomenal writer, and the narrative that's on your exhibit board is really intriguing and dynamic, but you're not much of an artist. And the girl was a 6th grader and was kind of sheepish. She said, I really don't like to do art, but I thought that I had to do an exhibit board, because most students going through schools are told to do posters, right? So exhibit board seems to be the natural flow. And the next year she was back doing the paper, and she moved on from into states and I think nationals with her paper. Tech savvy kids have the advantage of doing websites and documentaries, and the technology has so drastically improved since we began this even 10, 15 years ago. It's just quite amazing. And performances, the kids that really love to do performance and create costumes and create the stage presence and characters. Performances is a great outlet, a great outlet for them. I think it's important for kids to consider the time they have to spend and the resources that they have. If they don't have any access to documentary, Adobe, that type of thing, they should consider carefully how they want to work. And then I think it's really important for kids to consider whether they're working in a group or individually. If students are working in a group, it's very important. I'm a real student of multiple intelligence theory and the idea that there's different kinds of intelligences or talents. So if you're doing an exhibit board, you need someone in the group, obviously, that's has strong visual talents and spatial skills. And you need someone in the group that is a good writer and can put words together. Everyone needs to do the research. And our judges are trained when a group is in front of them to ask, how did the group work together? How did they share the responsibilities? And the best answers are when kids say, we all did the research, but we took different perspectives. or we did our own unique research and then came together and considered what we have. The process is that they find a topic that they are really interested in and do the research. They need to develop a thesis. We're going to talk more about this in a minute. And then that leads them to doing the analysis and the synthesis, as historians do, the thinking, the really good thinking process. Creating the entry, the exhibit board, or the putting together the performance, doing the documentary. And then they go to regional competitions, which begin in March, late February or March. But a caveat on that, websites and papers are due February 1st. So students that are looking for, oh boy, I don't have a lot of time, they need to know that the complete and finished product for websites and papers is February 1st. So it really is a year-long process. How do you pick a topic? Well, I love the statement that it doesn't have to be history, but National History Day projects have to have history. We have literally had kids do topics on Dr. Seuss, Braille, Coco Chanel, ice hockey. I mean, just anything, that Broadway shows, anything that they're interested in. It needs to tie into the theme. We'll talk about that. But it really has to have history. In order to do good analysis, students need to think about their topic over time, at least 30 years, a generation, so that they can analyze literally the so what. So how is this topic, how did this impact its own time, and how has it been impactful over time? What makes it significant? So you think about SpaceX. Okay, that's a frontiers in history is our topic this year. Wow, SpaceX would be so cool. But no, because it's very recent. We have no idea what the impact is going to be over time, even if it lasts over time. So how you pick a topic? Most important thing I think that is an advantage for History Day is it allows students to have full agency. It's a topic that they are interested in, not something assigned to them, not something that is required for them to do, something that they are fully engaged and enthused about. The skills that they're going to use are what you teach. The skills of being a researcher, using primary and secondary sources, looking at context and the importance of context and of space and time and place and time. All of that is what you're doing in your classroom all the time. And more so given the standards, learning standards for the state of New Jersey, inquiry learning, problem-based learning, all of this. But History Day gives students an outlet to pursue a topic of their choice in a very authentic way, to really engage with their topic as a true historian. So what fascinates students? What fascinates you? What questions did you have? Literally, it's open to you. The world is open. Any time period, except very recent, remember it needs to be back in time, at least 30 years. And it can be any subject. It can be ancient history. It can be geography, poetry, anything. In order to narrow down the topic, like good historians, students need to develop a thesis. And that's really the hardest thing to do. Historians struggle with how to come up with a concise thesis that captures what they are intending to prove. History Day provides a theme every year that allows students to think about their topic through the lens of the theme, which allows them to get to a thesis. So the theme this year being Frontiers in History. The theme gives a researcher the entree into the so what, the significance of the topic. So, theme this year, Frontiers in History, people, places, and ideas. The frontier it'll be very interesting for you to explore this idea with your classes as you're introducing History Day, the whole concept of what is a frontier. And this is where Nancy's sending you the National History Day 2023 guidebook or theme book. There's many, many ideas in this will be interpreted for you. We're going to come back in a moment to the theme, but first, because this is a National History Day project, there are 3 elements to a History Day project. The project itself, of course, an annotated bibliography, which is a typical, it's a typical bibliography with annotations that are about 3 sentences each. History Day, National History Day has refined this concept of what an annotation is because students were literally writing a full page of annotation, just throwing everything into it. But to consider, an annotation literally says, this is how I used the source. They don't need to tell us in the annotation where they found the source unless there's some kind of compelling story behind it. But I went to the library and I found this book. No. All we really need to know, I'm saying we as a judge, when the judges are reading the annotated bibliographies, we're looking in that annotation for how did this source impact your thinking? How did it lead to an understanding of the topic, giving you background information, opening your eyes to a possible thesis? How did this source, how did you use this source in order to advance your project? A process paper is literally the process that you went through, the student goes through in order to create the project. And there are samples and examples of this on the National History Day website. But for the most part, it's important, you have to think in terms that the judge is going to see the process paper and the annotated bibliography first. And they for sure, before they look at they watch the documentary or the website or the performance, they're going to read that process paper. And in those 500 words, I used to tell my students, 500 precious words, and you don't want to waste them with, my teacher suggested, and I decided, and we changed our mind. We don't need that kind of process. We want to know when, from the point that the students had their topic, they decided on their topic, how did it move forward? This is the place where they can highlight and showcase interesting sources that they found or an interview that they did. This is where they can connect their topic to the theme and how their topic integrates frontiers in history. Oh, bless you. This is the process paper with an exhibit board, for example, will key the judges into looking at the colors that are used on the board, or what was the thinking behind the development of the board. With the documentary, giving us a kind of some insight on what kind of music was used and why, but giving us the why, giving the judges, I'm saying we, but giving the judges the why behind how things were done. That would be the process paper. There are rules, and the idea that it's apples to apples. So documentaries are 10 minutes, performances are 10 minutes. Websites have a specific amount of student-generated words, as well as exhibit boards have student-generated words. Students, in order to get around this, put things in quotes. They quote their sources in order to make their point, which is a really good use of sources, and they're thinking like historians. A moment on the idea that this is a contest. Nancy every year collects data as the kids have like an exit ticket. Actually, it's an entrance ticket into the final when the students the awards are given. And students are asked as well as teachers and parents, about their experience with History Day. The comments that we get from students are quite enlightening. And this is what I heard from my students for the 15 years that I was doing History Day with students at the middle school level. The contest itself and winning awards becomes very, very secondary to the process itself. And students talk quite eloquently about how wonderful the experience was, how much they learned, how much did it help them to grow as thinkers and as researchers. I was working with middle school kids, many that went on to the high school that went into the sciences, and they were doing serious research and publishing papers in their senior year of high school. And they would tell me that all the skills that they learned that allowed them to be successful in the fields of science and maths came from History Day and what they learned with that. So it's, again, these are all skills that you teach and want to encourage your students to use in the classroom. But again, it's an authentic way for students to apply it in their own work. There are rules and there's a contest rule book. I think it's very important for you, the mentor, to review the rule book carefully. All the entries have very common requirements for the process paper and the annotated bibliography, but then there are specific rules for each category. For example, the size of the exhibit board and the length of time for performances and documentaries, like that. It's important to know the rules before you begin. So, how is it going to be judged? And this will give you an indicator of what is valued by History Day and, as teachers, what you value. A full 60% is historical quality. How accurate, how thorough is their research? Did they use available primary sources? Did they balance their research and their presentation? Did they find multiple points of view? In our very divisive society today, I know as teachers and historians, we all sit back and think, whoa, there's two sides, multiple sides to every issue, to every story. And it's important, not all of them are equally valuable, but they are there. And it's important for us to understand them and to be able to present them and discount them as necessary. And that's all part of the thoughtful analysis and interpretation that plays such an important part in historical thinking. 20% is relationship to the theme. And the new rubric that History Day has come up with is that the relationship to the theme is integrated into historical quality. So looking at the theme and is there historical context and is there historical significance, which again is part of historical quality. And then ultimately, I don't know why this doesn't want to advance. It's probably going to advance 3 different screens at this point. The third is the aesthetics, the quality of the product itself. Is the paper well written? Is the exhibit board aesthetically pleasing? Is it organized in such a way that allows people to engage with it fully? Is the sound quality in the documentary good? You know, just clearly aesthetics. All right, so Nancy, I'm trying to advance through my clicking and it won't advance. So anybody that has ideas, please let me know.
Well, it was working well. You could go out and come back in again if you want.
Yeah, I can stop the share and say hello. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to show you this is your theme book for the year. Written by people at National History Day, really good curriculum people. And that will be coming to you, right, Nancy?
Yes,
Okay.
it's a reward for coming today.
All right. So let's see if this will start again.
While she's pulling that up, I'm just going to chime in on a couple of things. One of which is people do History Day in different ways. Students don't have to compete. You may incorporate it. Some places have done it as like project-based learning for a certain grade level, like that's their 10th grade project or 11th grade project. The rubrics are there, the authentic ways, same ways historians present their research. But then only some students go on and have this passion to compete. Okay, you're back.
I am back. And that's important. You may require all your students to do some kind of research project. And those that want to really dig down and go the distance, you're going to find that they're going to really take to History Day. This is just a further elaboration of the idea of research, which is very familiar to all of you. I do encourage students to use secondary sources first. My middle schoolers would always say, what's the best kind of source to use? Primary better than secondary? No, primary and secondary are both important. But I do believe that secondary sources are necessary to start just to get the basics of which essentially is a report. It essentially starts with a report. And once they have the who did it, what, and when, and where, then they can get to the interesting questions of how did this happen and why did this happen? And then ultimately, as they're looking at their primary sources, their interviews, and they're putting this together, they're able to answer the so what and draw some conclusions, right? As they're looking at their theme. I always encourage students to be very wary of bias, to be aware of bias. There's bias in every source. Newspapers, for example, write history first, but they don't always write it accurately. Newspapers are influenced by conditions of the day, politics of the day, sometimes economic factors, not wanting to offend someone that is an editor, that type of thing. So it's important to be aware of who wrote it and for what audience, or who produced a source and for what audience and for what purpose. And then there is this is actually the concept of presentism is making its way around the history world. Presentism is our own personal 21st century bias, that we see the world through the lens of our enlightened 21st century self. And we get ourselves kind of boxed in because we lose sight of what the conditions and the context and the culture of a time would have been that would have directed people's behaviors and actions and attitudes. We're not saying that it's good, and certainly we're always proud of the fact that we've risen above and we've come so far, but it's important to not allow ourselves to be judgmental with our own presentism. Connection to the theme, a trick that I think is really important is that the title and the thesis are closely linked. Allow the judges to, or your audience, to see right from the start how you're connecting your frontier with your topic. And then that so what is essentially your strong conclusion. If the thesis is just a statement of fact, is very obvious, you really, the student has missed the interpretation and the analysis. So the point here is that thinking takes time. The research process needs to start as soon as possible. It needs to happen over time so that ideas can percolate, that connections can start to be made, that students can ruminate on the topic and their focus, and then how it connects to the theme. All right, timeline. Teachers have asked for this, and the getting to a topic quickly is important. And one of the things that Fernanda is going to share with you are New Jersey topics. We are very committed to promoting local history. One of the things that I'm doing with the New Jersey Historical Commission with the Rev NJ folks, the semi-quin stuff, getting ready for the 250th anniversary, is something called Perfect Partners, where we're connecting public historians with educators. We've had the first of will be 3 webinars on this, but local historical sites, historical societies, archives, museums, historical houses in your community. All of these have a story. All of these have some kind of interesting connection locally. And the idea of trying to find a way to connect teachers with these public history sites. One of the ways that we were working on this past week with Ashley Woolsey Green, who's the head of social studies at the Department of Education, is standards, and having the public history folks connect standards to the programming that they develop, which makes it much easier for a teacher to say, this is a place we need to go because it's going to hit these standards, or this is something that I would like to bring in my classroom via video or Zoom, because it does connect to what we're doing and what we're required to do. Encourage your students to keep good journals. They need to, as they're doing their research, they need to every time, whatever I told my students, whatever source you touch, get the full citation for that source as you have it in your hand. And if you have a tool like Noodle Tools or Noodlebib that will help students to record this, that's great. Something that's electronic. If not, they put it in some kind of notebook. But it's very important for them to note dates and page numbers and editors and publishers, the full citations. It would behoove you, if you haven't already, to do a mini lesson on what is in a citation and why it's important. And in today's world, when everything is online, which is great, one of the things in a citation will be at the end, it'll say print, or it'll say website. And if it's a website, they can give the website. That's not even required. And what also is not really required is, when did the student find the site? Often students think that the date they're supposed to record is the date they found or they read the thing online. Frankly, I could care less as a judge when they found it. What I'm interested is, when was that document produced? What date was that produced? Where was it produced? Who wrote it? Full citation information. And it's important to keep that, it's ongoing, because the worst thing in the world, and every researcher goes through this, you get it careless and you use a source and you don't get the full citation, and then you have to go back and find it. And it's just like a needle in a haystack. It's awful. So that's just some good advice. The other advice that I would have about the process paper, which is really good to keep a researcher's log, is every time a student is working on their History Day project, and it might be days or weeks in between when they get back to it, in their log, they have questions that they've asked and answers they found and the next steps they want to take. This is also where they can record their aha moments. Oh my gosh, this is when I found my thesis. This is when I decided on it. That log becomes really helpful when the student is writing their process paper, and it makes the process paper much more robust. Thinking takes time. Deep thinking takes even more time. Analysis, synthesis happens before and parallel to the creation of the entry itself. And then the kids need to be cognizant of when websites and papers are due, and then when also the projects are due. So I believe our regionals this year, the last week of February and the first week of March, so it's going to come up fast. Well, if you're in it to win it, and you want some tips for creating winning projects, you do that report first, where you have all the basic research done, and then you get into an NHD research project where you ask the bigger questions, like why and how, and ultimately the so what. Good questions lead you to good analysis. And then more tips, the bibliography, range and depth of sources. Historical quality comes from the quality of research. It's very difficult to come up with a really substantial project when a student has used very tertiary, limited research materials. Yeah, they can use Wikipedia. That's kind of a neat way that we all get started, but don't put Wikipedia in the bibliography. You know, dig into the links that Wikipedia offers and use those links. And citations are so critically important. Follow the guidelines. All right, so it's a History Day project, so you act like a historian with research and a thesis and developing an argument, drawing conclusions, and you use the tools of an historian with a bibliography, meaning complete citations, the date the source was written and produced, please. I emphasize this because as a judge, that's the biggest bane of my existence when those citations are not complete. Using secondary and primary sources, and then annotations to convey how the source influenced your thinking. Citations and footnotes are important to obviously avoid plagiarism, but it's also a way to showcase research and analysis. It's an annotated bibliography using quotes and citations within your project itself is impressive. It's the art of being an historian. So let's think about the theme. Got frontiers, which is something new and unexplored. Could be geographic. I mean, we think about the West and oceans and space. We think about breaking new ground with technology or music or art. We think about people as frontiers. Gutenberg and David Sarnoff, right here in West Windsor, who developed early radio and television. The Beatles, who were innovators in music. Literally, every topic that you could think of is a possibility. Kids go with what interests them, and again, what has history. Egyptians and Mayans, the Titanic was an unsinkable ship. Can you think in terms of industries, Hamilton's National Bank, the National Road? This fascinates me. In 1811, people just couldn't go anywhere for big swaths of the year because the roads were in such horrible condition. And the government came up with a national road that led from the frontier, which was at that time Pennsylvania into Ohio. And it allowed for safe and speedier travel. We think about our interstate highways, and how that began. Telegraphs, internet, the development of all the technology. We think about Robert Frost and other trendsetters, Beethoven, a trendsetter in music. These are all ideas of frontiers. And then New Jersey history. Governor Newell was a pioneer in saving shipwreck victims. Alice Paul was a pioneer in literally messaging and how to sway public opinion. One of our first firebrand feminists. Laurie's Highway that crossed from East New Jersey to West New Jersey in the late 1500s is the first highway in New Jersey that goes through, when you think about Route 1, that goes from Trenton to New Brunswick, how important that was. The Brotherton Reservation, was it a social experiment? How did it fail? How was it successful? Still there. People are still active there. the New Jersey Compromise, which was a revolutionary idea, and David Sarnoff, of course, and the mind behind mass media. So I'm now going to turn this over to Fernanda, who can fill you in on some wonderful ideas that and what the Rutgers archives have to offer. So at this point, colonial and many topics that she has to provide for us.
So while you're stopping sharing and
I do think National History Day has all of these elements and develops this in students. Okay, so there's my stop share, and Fernanda will take over.
and we had a question in the chat, Joan.
Oh, good.
One question was about the PowerPoint, which we will put on. We'll put the PowerPoints on the website, and but one was about a template or ideas for a journaling template.
We could develop a template. Nancy, make a note of that. But basically, it's just the date that you are working, questions that you have that day, what you're working in, and then before you close that journal for the day, where are you going the next time? What's the next question that you're going to explore? Because if you've done any research, you know it's like putting together a wonderful quilt, and you know exactly where everything goes, but you run out of time, you fold it all up, and the next time you pull it out, you look at it and think, well, where am I going with this? So the journal just keeps everything in focus for students, and it's just basic.
Okay, Fernanda, we're turning it over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for attending. As Joan said, I'm from Special Collections and University Archives at Rutgers University Libraries in New Brunswick. And Special Collections and University Archives is delighted to again welcome National History Day students to our home in the Alexander Library in New Brunswick. As you may know, Rutgers University Libraries was closed to the public for over 2 years. We have now reopened with certain restrictions. Because of flood damage caused by Hurricane Ida last year, Special Collections and University Archives is using a temporary reading room on the first floor of the Alexander Library. We have reduced hours Tuesday through Thursday, 10 to 12:30 and 1:30 to 4. Some of our resources are inaccessible. Because we had to move many archival collections to remote storage, please send research topics 2 weeks in advance. Appointments can also be made to use Rutgers University Libraries, databases, and online resources. And we look forward to helping you in person with your New Jersey National History Day projects. Because of the restrictions still in place at, I'll call it SCUA, I'm going to suggest topics that use both high quality internet primary sources and SCUA's physical resources. Rutgers University Library's website is a gateway to our resources. Special Collections and University Archives has its own website. For digitized material, you can search our digital repository. And digital collections can also be found on this page. In this workshop, I'm going to suggest some New Jersey topics that fit this year's theme, Frontiers in History, People, Places, Ideas. Frontiers in history can be interpreted to mean a physical or geographic frontier, as Joan said, or a frontier in ideas, science, economics, or technology. Special Collections and University Archives Sinclair, New Jersey collection is one of the largest state and local history collections in the United States. We have thousands of books, periodicals, and archival materials related to New Jersey history. But first, Why choose a New Jersey topic? Doing a New Jersey topic will give you the opportunity to visit local historical sites and speak to local people who are easily accessible. A New Jersey topic may provide the opportunity to do something original. Many History Day students choose similar topics, which is fine, but results show that it is to your advantage to choose a less well-known story. You may discover something that no one else has discovered before and find yourself adding to historical knowledge. If that is not enough, the New Jersey Historical Commission offers a prize for the best New Jersey topic at the state competition. The first topic I will suggest concerns New Jersey as a physical frontier. In 1609, Henry Hudson sailed along the Atlantic coast and traded with Native Americans in Sandy Hook Bay. In the following years, the Dutch established small settlements or patroonships in Hudson and Bergen counties and parts of Staten Island. Conflict grew between colonists and Native Americans during this period. Misunderstandings led to the destruction of some European settlements, such as Swannondale and Lewis, Delaware. Under William Kieft, who became Director General of New Netherlands in 1637, conflicts grew worse as he attempted to tax Native Americans. He accused the Lenape of stealing a pig, which actually led to much loss of life. In the end, a Dutch servant was found to be the culprit. Kieft's men attacked native settlements, and the Lenape retaliated. Relations improved under the new governor, Peter Stuyvesant, who took over in 1649 and preferred diplomacy to confrontation. Therefore, the first topic is, in the 17th century, settlers and Native Americans clashed on the New Jersey frontier. What caused this conflict and what were the results? And here are some resources. The Museum of American Indian Smithsonian Institute's website provides useful information about conflicting ideas about landholding among colonists and native peoples. Important resources about the Dutch in America are the New Netherlands Institute and the Library of Congress. The second topic I would suggest relates to the Revolutionary War in New Jersey. New Jersey was on the frontier of the battle of ideas about liberty and justice, as well as the physical frontier of the battlefield. Important battles, including the Battle of Monmouth and the Battle of Trenton, were fought in New Jersey. Washington and the colonial army spent a very cold winter in Morristown, New Jersey. Troops marched back and forth across central New Jersey, occupying towns and cities like New Brunswick. New Jersey citizens were on the frontier of conflict between supporters of the Revolution, the Patriots, and supporters of the British, known as the Loyalists. One prominent Loyalist was William Franklin, the last colonial governor of New Jersey, and Benjamin Franklin's son. After conflict with the colonial assembly, he was placed under house arrest and ultimately fled to England, where he spent the rest of his life, never speaking to his father again. The second topic is, during the Revolutionary War, New Jersey residents were on the frontier of struggle over whether to support the patriot cause or remain loyal to the crown. What was at stake for them? There are many resources on the American Revolution, so many that it is almost overwhelming. Here are some online resources related to the Revolutionary War in New Jersey. This is the New Jersey Historical Commission website. And we talked about their having a multi-year program, series of programs and development of resources about the revolution in New Jersey in celebration of the 250th anniversary. And this is their site Materials for Teachers, called It Happened Here, has several units on the revolution in New Jersey. The Crossroads of American Revolution website also includes useful information and resources. And our PowerPoints are going to be on the New Jersey History Day website. So you can come back and check these URLs, because I know I'm going rather quickly. In the early 19th century, New Jersey was at the frontier of developments in transportation, including toll roads, canals, and railroads. Topic 3 asks you to evaluate the impact of these developments. In fact, the first railroad in the nation was founded in New Jersey. In 1812, John Stevens of Hoboken applied for a charter for a railroad using steam engines, but the legislature refused to grant it. After some success building steamboats, Stevens applied again, finally receiving his railroad charter in 1825. The steam wagon that he built achieved the speed of 12 miles an hour on his estate near Hoboken. In the following years, canals and railroads developed quickly in New Jersey, revolutionizing transportation and communication in the state. What was the impact of these developments? Special Collections and University Archives holds a wealth of historical documentation on railroads and canals. Oh, sorry. Went too fast. Special Collections and University Archives holds a wealth of historical documentation on railroads and canals. Some of these documents can be viewed in the digital exhibit, All Aboard Railroads in New Jersey, 1812 to 1930. And these are some images from the exhibit and the URL. Topic 4 asks you to evaluate the contribution of one family to science and technology. John A. Roebling, who lived from 1806 to 1869, was on the frontier of science and technology in the mid-19th century. An immigrant from Germany, he was able to perfect the manufacture of wire rope, powerful cables that revolutionized bridge building and the construction of skyscrapers. As an engineer, he was on the frontier of bridge design, successfully spanning Niagara Falls and designing one of the world's largest bridges of the time, the Brooklyn Bridge. Let me just go back. So this is from our collection, and this is an early design for the Brooklyn Bridge from one of John Roebling's notebooks. Tragically, John A. Roebling died as a result of an accident on the bridge site, and son Washington Roebling took over the project. Like his father, Washington was on the cutting edge of bridge design through his use of caissons, chambers deep below the surface of the water that supported the bridge. When Washington developed Caisson's disease as a result of spending too much time underground, his wife Emily stepped in to serve as liaison between her husband and the construction crew at the bridge site. SCUA holds the archives of the Roebling family and company, and this material can be accessed by request. In the late 19th century, New Jersey remained on the frontier of developments in science and technology through the many inventions of Thomas Edison. In 1876, Edison built the nation's first industrial research and development laboratory at Menlo Park, a failed suburban development in Middlesex County. In creating this laboratory, Edison helped transform how inventions took place. Ideas became reality through his associated manufacturing plant. Here he developed and manufactured the first incandescent lamp or light bulb. He later moved the laboratory to a larger facility in West Orange. Edison's inventions included improved telegraphs and telephones, electric power plants, batteries for electric automobiles, believe it or not, sound recordings, and motion pictures. Sample topic 5 is, what was Edison's significance in the history of technology? The best resources on Thomas Edison can be found on the website of Edison's West Orange Laboratory, now a museum and historical national park. Equally important is the website of the Thomas Edison Papers, a long-term project based at Rutgers University to publish the huge trove of Edison documents. Not everyone benefited from the achievements of the American Revolution or the Industrial Revolution of the 19th century. The campaign for women's suffrage, or the right to vote, had its origins in the Declaration of Rights and Sentiments of 1848, written by Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who later lived in New Jersey. In the late 19th century, the suffrage movement in New Jersey was dominated by the state branch of Stanton's organization, the National Women's Suffrage Association. By the early 20th century, younger women like Alice Paul of Morristown, which is my hometown, became impatient with the slow pace of change. After Woodrow Wilson's re-election in 1916, Alice Paul and the National Congressional Union in Washington began picketing the White House. Women wearing sashes and carrying banners stood silently day after day, rain or shine. The women, known as the Silent Sentinels, initially attracted positive media attention. In March 1917, the New Jersey Congressional Union changed its name to the National Woman's Party, New Jersey branch, and now combined with the National Congressional Union to campaign through state congressional districts for the passage of the Susan B. Anthony Amendment, or the amendment granting women the right to vote. The National American Women's Suffrage Association leadership was very critical of the pickets, especially at a time when war with Germany seemed imminent. Later members of the National Women's Party were jailed, held hunger strikes, and were force-fed. These are some of the women in jail. Topic 5 is, New Jersey was on the frontier of women's suffrage, as shown by the activism of Alice Paul. Do you support Alice Paul's more aggressive stance or the more moderate policies pursued by the New Jersey Women's Suffrage Association? Which was more effective and why? There are numerous resources on the women's suffrage movement, particularly after the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, granting women the right to vote in 2020. Here are websites from the Library of Congress, National Archives, and the National Park Service. I also created this digital exhibit, National Park Service, sorry. Ooh, here's my slide. I also created this digital exhibit on women's suffrage in New Jersey. And this can be found on the Special Collections website. SCUA holds the papers of Elizabeth Cady's, well, it's called the Elizabeth Cady Stanton Memorial Collection, which was donated by her son, Theodore. We actually have the papers of her son, Theodore, which included some of her papers. The collection includes letters, photographs, and publications by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and other feminist leaders. And this collection can be viewed by students on request. I will just introduce one more topic. In the early 19th century, tuberculosis or consumption killed 1 of every 7 people. There was no cure. Those who contracted the disease were sent to sanatoria where they were prescribed rest and fresh air. That would all change through the research of Selman Waxman. Selman Waxman was a Rutgers University professor of microbiology who is best known for the discovery of streptomycin, which earned him the Nobel Prize in 1952. In later years, it became apparent that graduate student Albert Schatz and others were also involved in the discovery. As a microbiologist, Waxman concerned himself primarily with soil organisms. His marine studies at Woods Hole were similarly concerned with microorganisms in the sea. Waxman became a leading authority on the soil organisms known as actinomycetes, and his most significant work was the isolation of a number of antibiotics from these organizations. The most important of these, as I said, was streptomycin, isolated in 1942, which revolutionized the treatment of tuberculosis. Topic 7 is please evaluate the contribution of Selman Waxman. Now, Rutgers holds the papers of Selman Waxman, and the collection has a finding aid, which I'll try to demonstrate for you. Let's see if this works. Well, can you see it? Or do I have to share it again?
I think you have to click it.
We just see the link still.
Okay.
So if you see it, you could stop sharing and it's up to you.
Do you see it now? Okay, so this is a finding aid. A finding aid is basically a guide to a collection which gives background information and enables you to choose which boxes you would like to see. If students are interested in this topic, please review the finding aid before coming in. Just going to go back to the PowerPoint. I hope these ideas have given you ideas. I hope these topics have given you ideas for potential projects. I have created a list of New Jersey topics, which will be or is available on the New Jersey History Day website, as will be my slides. And if teachers are interested in bringing in students to special collections, we have information on our website, which I have the link here. Let me share this again. So this is our website, and we have something called teaching resources. And then there's National History Day and request a class visit. Let's see. It's not going to work for some reason. But I'm sure if you try that at home, you can get information about bringing students into the collection. So thanks again, and I'm happy to entertain questions.